Hello, 7 MotorSport here. It's been quite a long time, but welcome to another race report. This is the Carnage of the Americas edition. And as you can see, I've gone for a slightly different way of doing it this time. But of course, like usual, I do have a look at other drivers' perspectives. Like this one, this is the start, obviously, from the guy starting in last place, and he has a slight issue with his braking. And as you can see, I myself have run into a slight problem also, but actually that was at least partly my fault. I went a little bit too wide exiting the corner. And of course, you'll know what Forza is like, so the rest just comes barging through. So that means I have some catching up to do, but in the meantime, this will show you why I have called this video Carnage of the Americas. So this guy is obviously not at fault here, as he got bumped from behind. However, what happens now is this guy. First, he loses control of his car slightly, and like most people do in Forza, he rejoins, and it's instant carnage. So he gets going again, but unfortunately, or maybe not, it depends how you look at it, he is not the last. So now we have this guy, nice livery by the way. Everything seems to be going quite well for him, but then, hello, that is not supposed to happen. He gets bounced around a little, and to be honest, I'm not really sure whose fault it was. So, after all this carnage, it's back to my view again, and you will notice the JSR logo on my Lotus. And this livery is made by JSR Devon, so if you're driving the Lotus, go check out this livery because it's awesome. So after being spun out in the first corner of the race and basically starting over again in last position, and of course all the carnage that has occurred in the first lap, I now find myself in 5th position. I can remember league races that were really good, but this first lap in this league race is actually, I think, one of the worst I have been in. But then again, Circuit of the Americas, especially those S's in the first lap, that's just asking for trouble. And so we begin the second lap out of 6, and in case you're wondering, this is a league race from the what's it called, the Truck Toys League from a couple of weeks ago. So approaching the famous S's once again, and you can see people are cutting the corners there, and most people actually do, and that is exactly the reason why there is so much carnage in Forza in the first lap in this circuit. At this point in the race, it doesn't really matter that much if people do, because the field is already quite spread out. But in the first lap, when all 20 or so cars are really packed together, well, of course you've been in the situation yourself, so I really don't need to explain how that one works, but safely to say it's a carnage magnet. So nearing the end of lap 2, and that guy just spins out of control, and that gives me 4th place. It could have been lag related, I'm not sure about that. So far, apart from my misfortune in the first lap, it's been quite an easy race, but sometimes you just kind of forget to defend your position and you lose one. So here's the brilliant overtake from the other guy's perspective, giving him P4. So naturally I tried to retake my position, so I ended up chasing him for quite a while, but eventually he would pull away a little, so yeah, well, that's that. And there's also one thing that I would like to mention, and I guess most folks in leagues use manual with clutch, as I do most of the time. And my regular viewers probably know this, that I am using a Thrustmaster TX wheel. And that wheel has a function to bind the A button, or essentially the, yeah, well, how is it called? The pedal I use to shift up and down, or more accurately the pedals, actually, because you use two. And most of the time that works fine, so that means that I don't have to use my clutch pedal. But for some reason, when I use this in this car, the shifting, it doesn't entirely work out the way it should, and I ended up with clutch damage. Anyway, the end of lap 3, and this means it was time for my quick stop. And you might have noticed in the picture-in-picture screen in the top left corner of the screen that I, during the race, switched to my Xbox home screen. And the reason for that is sometimes Forza's force feedback suddenly gets really heavy. So for some reason, if you switch back to the home screen, it resets the force feedback. So leaving the pit for the beginning of lap 4, and this would become the most interesting part of the race. And the reason why is that guy right behind me, because at this point he really started to annoy me. He kept trying to push into my car, I guess to try to get through me instead of properly overtaking. So here you can see him doing that from his perspective. You can see he keeps, well, I wouldn't say ramming, but pushing into the rear of my car, and also you see he's cutting the corners, but he eventually nearly spins out, so that would at least give me some space. But later on in the race he would be back, and at that point he would really annoy me. So, well, you just have to wait and see. Actually, at this point he looks like a stalker. He just keeps on following me. There really should be a rule against that. So at this point we skip ahead to the beginning of lap 6. So at this point the same guy is still behind me, and as you can see now, he went for a lunge. Well, he was quite far away, so I really didn't see a reason to defend my position. Well, I suppose you can't really defend against idiots like that. Otherwise you would have to look back at every corner you make, and well, I don't think that would be practical. But anyway, as you can probably imagine, at this point I'm in full steam ahead mode. I'm really trying hard to get back past him. And I might have mentioned in the chat how much of a nice person he was. And as you can see, this incident also brought the guy who was behind me really close. So besides having to try to get my position back, I also have to defend my position. But luckily for me, the guy that slammed into me as the screen went black there for a moment, he also has to deal with the other guy, the guy in the white car. So that would slow him down a bit, and that would enable him, or enable me, sorry, to keep up and maybe get an opportunity to get past again. And the final corner of the race, and what happens? Well, I'm going for it, like a Klingon maneuver, if you know what I mean. So I get in a bit of a sandwich situation. So here we have a look at the other guy's perspective. So you can see that I was alongside him before he started turning in. But besides that, he's the guy who slammed into me, so tough luck for him. Goodbye. Well, I did lose a couple of positions, but who cares, right? So, finishing in 7th position, and that just means that it's also the end of this video. So, thank you very much for watching, and be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see more Race Report style videos. So, until next time, goodbye.